Welcome to the Komicast. This is, I guess we could call this episode one, probably. My
Mhm.
name is Kobe. I know me on some other platforms as Comic or Comic Reader. I'm joined by my co-host Fred Schwartz.
I
And today we're going to be, since this is episode one, we decided to start with a topic that is pretty divisive on our end. The main thing we're going to be talking about is the Batman. Probably my personal favorite Batman movie, one of my favorite comic book movies, and Fred over there is on the opposite end.
no.
Yeah. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. Fred, is there anything you want to say before we get into it?
No, Kobe. I think you should go ahead and begin.
Okay, begin. All right. Um,
Your
I
opening
guess
statement.
opening segment. I think that the Batman is the best Batman movie out there.
Mhm.
I think it's the best Batman movie out there, and honestly, personally, I would go as far as to say it's my favorite live-action superhero movie.
Okay. So let me begin, and I don't mean to be obnoxious, but
Okay.
let's start with: can you define your Batman? Right? Like, what are the traits that make Batman to you? Like, beyond just a guy that dresses up in a suit and fights crime dressed as a bat.
I think that Batman is a character who he doesn't have any powers. He does what he does because he thinks it's the right thing, and he has the willpower to keep going no matter what happens. I think that he sort of embodies the idea of a superhero without the superpowers, and I think that that's really cool. And I think that there's two sides to Batman. I think there's the side of Batman where he's sort of like a mythological character, especially in a lot of bigger Justice League stories. He's sort of bigger than man in some ways. And then there's the stories where it's sort of more grounded in Gotham, and it's a bit more of like a thriller kind of Batman that we see. And I think that this Batman, the Batman, is definitely more of the grounded in Gotham kind of feel. And I very much like that side of Batman. I like both sides of Batman, but I think that this movie portrayed that version a lot better than any other movie has.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. I think it's interesting how you're able to kind of compartmentalize the two different sides of Batman, right? Because I agree with you very much so on the idea of him. I think I've talked to you before, right? Like I look at Superman and Batman as like bookends on a spectrum for superheroes, right? Like Superman is, essentially a god and all powerful, and his kind of, beyond his quest to be a hero, it's really to like connect with humanity, right? And be one of us. And I think Batman is kind of the other end of that. He's a human being who kind of strives for the powers of godhood. And I think it's interesting that you kind of like break them up because like it's the second Batman that like I kind of like harp on a bit, right? That he's like able to like stand in with the gods essentially, right? Like when they're at the round table and stuff with all the Justice League members, you're right. He's the only human there, and in some ways he's like more powerful than any of them. But I think where I have contention with this movie, right, is like a lot. I feel like a lot of the qualities that you described, they didn't embody, and they didn't really. I wouldn't say like emphasize, right? I think that's the main problem I had with this movie, and I think. So my take on Batman is I like to think of him as like a self-actualized man, right? A guy who's like physically, mentally, and psychologically as like sharpened and refined as a person can possibly be. And I know this is like a year two story, but I don't see any like of that in this version of it. And I mean, I'm still striving to see like what how this embodies that character. Maybe you can
Okay.
help me, like with some examples in the movie or something. I don't know.
I see. I see what you're saying. Where I agree. I don't think that this version of Batman is as like peak human as it gets, especially like mentally. He's very clearly like he's emotional. He makes a lot of wrong decisions. He makes mistakes and stuff like that. And I think I see where you're coming from. Where Batman's supposed to be like this. He's supposed to be, like you said, as mentally and physically refined as possible. Um, I think that for this story, I do really like his flaws. I like the way that he has to grow as a character himself rather than just be like this refined person from the get go, and that's what he carries himself throughout the story and trying to figure it out that way. I think that I like the fact that he has to go on a journey first. And I think that by the end of this movie, I still don't think he's peak Batman. He still has like his emo Bruce Wayne persona, which is really weird. I think that will hopefully grow within the sequels. But I like this version of Batman, and the story that they tell. This version of Batman works for me, and that's good enough. But I see where you're coming from with him not being like the Batman that you're used to.
Right. And I like that you distinguish that he is still kind of emo, because like as I was like,
a little bit of emo Bruce Wayne, yeah.
yeah, I was
not a huge fan of the haircut.
Yeah, one of my gripes as I was making notes was that he even his like journaling is like not very, like, even his writing's not bad. Like, he kind of reminded me of like the kind of emo poetry you would get from like the goth kids on South Park. And like as I wrote that, I thought of like, oh, he does have that hair flip too, just like those guys. So
yeah,
no, he really.
I will say I like the journaling though. I like the journaling. I think that was a cool aspect of it.
That is true. It's very comic, very year one, year two, and I did like that. And that was one of my things is like a lot of people who do like this movie tell me that the reason they do is because they feel it's like most like the comics. And that's the thing with Batman is like a character like this has been around forever. You've got like a million stories in one, right? Like, you can go to anybody and talk to them for 10 minutes and like probably prescribe them a Batman story they could get into from a different period, because Batman, really is anything. And I think they're drawing on like a certain type of Batman story. And this is my problem with it, Kobe, and I think we talked about it, is like, I think this is kind of like a middling example of like things that we've done better in like other Batman stories, right? The one, I mean, it reminds me of like Court of Owls, where like I like that, like that's what I liked about the movie, right? Was like that they were trying to show this idea that like, they were like kind of like opening the aperture of like corruption, right? Like in Gotham, that like something Batman never considered, and like Court of Owls does that like expertly in the comics, right?
Yeah.
And like as I look at the movie, and that was one of the questions I posed to you when we were talking about this, is like, what does this movie do exceptionally well? Like, you mentioned the atmosphere, and it is right. Like, I mean, the atmosphere is really nice, and the cinematography is great, but
visually, it's probably the best live action comic book movie I've seen. You don't think so?
I'm trying to consider like. I mean, have you seen the meme online where like they do the Batmans over the years, and like each one gets like literally more dark, and they projected in the future like Batman 2035 is just going to be a black screen?
Yeah, but I don't think the dark scenes take away from anything. I don't think there's a single scene in that movie that you can look at and say you don't know what's going on.
When we were preparing for this, I did go back and watch it, and I watched it in 4K for the first time, which made a difference, and I did watch it on Dolby Vision Bright, and I hated it a lot less now that I was able to see a lot of those scenes. Like you were talking about the club scenes and stuff. Yeah, they do look nicer, and way better than I considered them. So like I can admit like some of my prejudgments I softened up on, but I think it is just kind of it comes down to like this kind of middling effort, and we all have, and that was something else I was thinking about, like when I was preparing for this, was that we all have different frames of reference. We've all seen different things. We all come from different places and stuff. And one of the things that I latched onto very early when I started writing was the screenwriter was talking about how every movie should show you something that you've never seen before, right? And I always kind of like stuck to that, right? Like every movie should try to do something, step in new ground somewhere. And I just didn't feel like this one did it in the way that, and maybe part of what I'm reacting to is like the overwhelming, like people that like, like you that are, this is the best. And I'm like, I don't see that. I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that perspective. Everybody has their own frames of reference when it comes to Batman. Depending on what they grew up with, whether it was their version of the cartoons, whether it was their version of the comics, of the movies. I grew up on a lot of Lego Batman, and then I watched the Dark Knight movies, and I was like, this is not Batman, because he's completely different from like the Lego ones, which are very much inspired by the Batman the Animated Series and the Batman '89 movie. So when I watched those, I was like, oh yeah, these are very Batman. And I also watched the Batman 2004 show growing up, which was, that inspired a little bit of like how I see Batman and stuff like
The
that.
cartoon,
So
The Batman, right?
yeah, the Batman, yeah, and which
How do you
shares the
feel
same
about
title as
that
the movie.
Joker as compared to others?
I think he's very different. I think I've seen a lot of opinions on Twitter. I need to go back and watch the show because I don't remember too much of it from my childhood, but I do remember like I remember liking the way that him and Harley were in that show, in comparison to like other shows. But that yeah, very I like his design. His design was very cool.
I remember seeing that the first time and like freaking out, like that's not Joker, and then I got into it. I'm like, pretty neat, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's kind of like the difficult part about doing a comic book adaptation. I remember like Tarantino talked about this years ago, how like he would never do a comic movie because like it's impossible to please comic fans, and he was onto that in like 2002, right? Like before people were like thought about like disappointing,
yeah.
the internet.
I think that's totally true.
Yeah, it's impossibly hard because like how do you like reinvent them without like breaking them? Like that's the hard part. Like people say all the time, like just give me the comic, right? And it's like, well, okay, but like which comic? Like if you're doing Spider-Man, my generation, if you say I want to see a Spider-Man movie, like my generation would think of like Spider-Man versus Venom. People older than me would want Green Goblin. People younger than me would want a totally different Spider-Man, like Miles Morales. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's a really hard thing to navigate. That's why, like, and again, maybe that's why I'm disappointed with this movie, right? Like, just going into it, I thought a lot of the choices they made were pretty interesting. Like, I love that costume. I
yeah.
love the Batmobile.
It's great. My God, the Batmobile is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, they did a great job of shooting. I told you, even when I was like snarky about this movie, the Batmobile chase was one of the things that I had to acknowledge. Like, it was really,
Oh yeah, it's
yeah,
one of the best scenes in the movie.
yeah. But I wonder too, man. I say we're gonna have to discuss this like a few months from now because like I don't want to ruin movies for you, but I'm gonna give you some other like a little syllabus of things to check out and see
Sure thing.
if they because to proclaim this as like the best movie, right? Like, have you seen? I mean, I know I'm biased, but have you seen The Crow?
I have not seen The Crow. I want to see The Crow because I know that that's one of your favorites.
Yeah, it's that's one that I put up there, but it's like that's another one that has like I mean, especially I told you I just saw the remastered version the other day, and the 4K really puts you in a world the way this one does. Yeah, there's other movies out there. I appreciate your bold proclamations on this one, but yeah, I again kind of middling, and I just don't know what really stands out. And also, I told you too, like I'm how do you feel about the characterizations? Like, I mean, we're talking about like getting away from characters and staying. Like, how do you feel about beyond Batman, which we can debate about. I mean, if I'm willing to accept emo Batman, I can do that. But some of
Right.
the other ones, like, I mean, in particular, the ones that offended me were like the Penguin. His name is not Oz. I don't care what he wants me to call him. Alfred. I didn't care for Alfred in this at all.
No, you didn't.
No, I thought he was very. I think the term I used was like boiled chicken, kind of flavorless, and like,
Wow.
yeah. And also, too, I mean, what am I missing? Like, I mean, he was in a total of maybe 6 scenes altogether,
I
and most
mean,
of them were figuring out ciphers. Like, that was actually when I went back to go back and check before this one started. I was like, did we ever go back and address that rift after the hospital scene?
I mean, not necessarily, right? Like they didn't really interact too much after that because it
Mm-hmm.
was sort of the climax of the movie.
Yeah,
But
I just want to see that hope and growth that you're
yeah,
like talking about. I don't feel like they really. That's my thing. Is like I don't think they like hammered a lot of this stuff home.
no, I don't know. I think that the scene towards the end of the movie, and I'm jumping ahead a bit here, where and I bring this up to you a lot when he falls into the water and the citizens of Gotham and it's flooding and it's dark and he lights the flare and he
Yes.
is quite literally like a guiding light for all of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
citizens and he's leading them out. That's a leader. He's leading the people of Gotham and he's helping them leave the building. He's gone from like a figure of vengeance and darkness to a guiding light, and I think that visually,
Wow.
I think that hammers it home.
Okay. You know what? I think I might have to go back and rewatch it again.
Yeah,
Because I mean, again, this is why I like having these conversations about art.
that's
Because like,
that's probably my favorite scene in the movie, right there. Like the shot of him from above when he has the flare lit and they're like all following. I love that.
not even the shot, but like, I mean, the shot. I mean, I
Yeah,
acknowledge
yeah,
the shot, but I'm saying like, it bookends the beginning really kind of beautifully when you put it that way, right? Because like
yeah.
the first image, wow, Kobe, deep, very deep, sir. Because that really does, right? Like the whole idea of him in the beginning is that his image would strike fear, and
Yes.
the idea that you're putting forward is at the end of the movie, he's trying to be an image of hope and light. Okay, Kobe.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And
see
and
it.
I think that another thing that brings that forward towards the beginning of the movie, the beginning of this movie, as I was rewatching it, I thought, oh my god, I forgot how good this intro was, where obviously you get the first scene with Riddler and he takes down the guy. That was whatever, and then after that, when Robert Pattinson's doing his little monologue, loved that. That monologue felt like it was coming out of speech bubbles. That's what that felt like,
Okay,
with the overly dramatic, emotional. And then I think one of the coolest scenes is when he's talking about the signal, and he says, it's not just a call, it's a warning. And we see the it's a Halloween. There's a guy in a mask. He robs a store. He goes outside. He looks up and he sees the signal, and he's thinking to himself about Batman. And he
yeah,
looks down the alley, and he just sees this void of darkness. And he's scared shitless. He almost gets run over by a car. He runs away.
yeah,
And I think the cool part about that is that Batman wasn't even there. It was purely the idea of Batman being there. So that's when, like, afterwards, when Robert Pattinson says the whole thing about, I'm not hiding in the shadows, I am the shadows.
okay,
He's sort of embodied the
okay,
idea that Batman is scaring criminals without having to be everywhere at once. And I think that's really cool, and it shows a contrast from, like, other scenes in Batman movies where, towards the beginning, in order to show off how cool and scary Batman is, they have him show up and punch a bunch of bad guys. Instead, this one shows he doesn't need to do that. His pure aura alone will scare off bad guys sometimes. And I
yeah.
think that's cool. I like the way that they did that.
Yeah, the way you say it's interesting, especially as I'm putting it together in my head, right? Like, maybe that's what I was missing from, again, not absolving the movie from the other stuff that I would ever, that I have issue with and stuff. But the maybe that is interesting, right? Like, the idea is like the Batman, right? And it's like about maybe the effect the Batman has, right? So, yeah, when you put it that way,
Yeah.
it does make nice sense. But there are some, that's interesting, right? Like, I think that's cool. It's a nice way of like understanding the Batman, right? But that's only part of the story. And I think that the thing that I use the term a lot, like connective tissue, right? Like, how does the movie like connect, right? And the connective tissue could run through the movie, right? Like, say it's a really like interesting mystery or plot driven story, and we've talked about this before. I don't really think this hits those notes of like a mystery or a detective. Like, I ultimately think at the end of the movie, we still don't really. Batman hasn't solved anything. We still don't know who the Riddler actually is. His plan basically works. I mean, okay, fine, but but like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I didn't feel like that connectivity to like to the character of Bruce Wayne. And I wanted to, right? Because that's like a key component of Batman. I think part of my problem with that was, hang on, I lost my train of thought, Cove.
You're right.
Um, right. So, okay. So. One of my problems with the movie, one of the big ones, is the omission of the origin. And I know, from your point of view, right, the story you're talking about, it doesn't matter. But or even anything from when he was young, right? Because that very first scene you were talking about, when he's like in the crime scene and he looks at the little boy, like, that's essentially an allusion to his origin, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we do enough in this movie. I guess maybe the big reveal of the story is what, right? I guess that the Waynes were corrupt too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. But they didn't set up any stakes so that we felt anything when that kind of comes to light, right? Like, I mean, do you feel that we had enough to like kind of establish Bruce's connection or reverence for his father, or Alfred's reverence for his father, or any of that stuff? Because like, what I saw was kind of like a little antagonistic fight, and I didn't feel that like who Thomas Wayne is. I feel like the movie was like kind of like asking me to care for the aura of Thomas Wayne more than a character.
I suppose you could say that. I think the way that I had approached it when I watched it was, this reveal that the Waynes were corrupt wasn't so much an attack on the Waynes, and the stakes weren't really there, but rather how dedicated Bruce was to his mission in remembrance of his parents. He was like so determined to take vengeance, and the word vengeance was used a lot, and vengeance for what? Vengeance for his parents' murder.
His
So when he
nickname.
finds Right, yeah, exactly. They use it so much that they start calling him it.
Yeah.
So when he finds out that his whole like motivation for this vengeance, like the whole grounds for it, is just obsolete, because his parents that he's been fighting for vengeance for weren't as good people as he thought that they were. So it kind of breaks his psyche. It changes his mindset a little bit. I think that that's where the tension comes from, not necessarily like the Waynes themselves.
Hmm. But again, I didn't feel. How do you get there? Like, how do you get to the connection that he had to his parents? Like, that's what I'm losing, right? And like, I was thinking about this, right? Like, I think you could fix that with like a very simple fix in the movie, right? And that's maybe part of my problem with this movie. Is like, I feel like a lot of the really interesting stuff kind of happens off screen, and I think, Falcone, right? Tatura. I get confused if it was Falcone or Maroni. Tatura, so
It's
Falcone,
Falcone.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Falcone on the court steps tells him that whole story. Like, how amazing would it have been to actually see that scene in the movie and like flesh out all this stuff? Like, if it's like a rainy night and Bruce is like making a snack, these people come in pounding on the door. His dad like clears the table. His mom comes in hysterical. Alfred calms her down. Like, it would have shown all these like elements that we see later. It felt like it was coming out of left field. Like, Martha Wayne's unstable. She was never presented as stable, or she was never alluded as to being unstable. She was never presented at all. And again, that little thing, like, I mean, if you just saw like young Bruce watching his dad like do the operation, like a surgeon, like just or like a conductor, like
Right.
and made some connection. Like, I guess that's my problem. Is like, again, I keep using that word connection. I didn't connect with it on an emotional level, on like an intellectual level. I didn't think it like really said anything about the world, kind of the way that the Nolan movies do. I mean, yeah, you can argue that maybe they're not the most Batman-y Batman movies, but I mean, I think they're definitely about the world that they were made in, right? Like, the first one's like, standing up to fear mongers. The second one is dealing with direct, domestic terrorists. And the third one is, what happens after there's a breach? How do you restore normalcy? And I don't really know what this is saying other than like, everything's corrupt except the Batman. And I wanted more than that.
Um.
Does that make me like, is that like, I mean, I feel like I keep saying that a lot. And I feel like I keep saying that, like, I wanted more. And is
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. No,
is that
I
a fair
mean,
criticism, or is
I
it?
think I think it's a fair criticism for you. If you walk into a 3 hour movie and you watch the whole thing and you walk out and you're like, I still want more, then I think that that's a fair enough criticism. Because it is a really long movie, and to have no flashbacks to his parents or any flashbacks at all, really, and the only allusion that we get to with his backstory is just like offhand stories that we hear from side characters, it is a little strange. It's unusual for, especially for a Batman movie, and I think that that's one thing that they were doing to try to stand out.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that they were trying too hard to stand out, and they suffered a little bit from those things.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that I was necessarily unsatisfied without it. I think that I was fine with just the Falcone stories. But now that you're saying that, like I do think that it could have benefited from more of that.
Um, it's a Batman movie, right? And like, that is like, to me, like, such a rare honor, right? Like, I impress upon this, on you a lot. Full disclosure, in case it's not apparent to anybody watching this, I'm older than Kobe, much. And when I grew up, like, comic movies were scarce and often bad, like really bad. And like, to get a Batman movie, I just want it firing on all cylinders, and I want it like progressing. And like, I understand like the Nolan movies to some people are what they are. We talk about the fighting style is not exactly
Yeah,
natural, but I just want them to keep building on stuff. And I feel like, certainly with the Snyder movies, I feel like they were steps backwards. This one, maybe now that we're talking about it, maybe that I'm able to appreciate it more. Maybe it was a step back from that, but I still want that movie that kind of like blows me away, blows my hair back or what's left of it. And I didn't feel like we, you know, it's hard. I feel like a few scenes and a few more, like a little more emphasis on some of these themes could have really helped the movie a lot and really helped me connect to it. So I'm curious then, since we're talking about this, if this Batman movie is your favorite, you said it is, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are your least favorites?
Least favorites. Ooh.
Live
Man.
action. We'll stay live action.
Yeah, live action. Honestly, live action is really. I think my least favorites are probably live action. I don't really have a lot of least favorites when it comes to animated ones. But The Dark Knight Rises.
Really?
Do not like that one.
Okay.
Not a fan.
Why?
I hate the ending.
What about it?
I hate that, like, Batman retires. He's, like, done. He fakes his death, and then that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Batman, I feel like, is a never-ending battle. Whether or not that's a good thing for the character of Bruce or not, he's always going to keep going. He doesn't give up unless he's like physically unable to. And at the end of that movie, Christian Bale can get off his ass and go beat some more criminals, and he just doesn't. He's I don't like it. I'm not a fan.
Okay, the thing I can agree with you on about the ending is that I hate the what I call like the Nolan flood ending, and he ends every movie that way, where he just floods you with a bunch of information. So like,
Yes, yeah,
you put it all together, and you're like, wow, that's really whoa. And then you like walk out, and you're like, well, wait a minute now, slow it down. Or you watch it a second time, and you're like, well, he does that a lot, and it's like that was my gripe with like Oppenheimer, was like it was the most Nolan movie like it could be. Like it was more about Christopher Nolan than it was about Oppenheimer. Yeah, I can see that absolutely. And I hate little like cheeky things like I like your real name, Robin. I can see how that would turn people off.
yes.
But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that's frustrating. I
Yeah.
I do like that one though. I was invested in the Bale arc. I like that. Like I don't think it's that he's retiring so much as like what they were trying for, as like he was trying to give his like last oomph, and like that bit. Like I mean, I love that line. Like not everything, not yet. Like that he's willing to just take it on the chin. Frankly, it might have been better if he just blew the hell up and didn't have dinner with that woman.
Maybe.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I can see that. I thought you were going to lean more towards the ones that I appreciate for their 90s-ness, which would have been like Forever, and even Batman and Robin.
No, okay, I'm going to say this. I love Batman Forever.
Really?
Forever. I love Batman Forever. I would go as far to say, like, out of like the old like 90s movies, that one might be like a personal favorite. Probably not the best, obviously, but it might be my personal favorite.
Please tell me why.
I think Jim Carrey Riddler is hilarious, and I'm glad that they weren't afraid to just like go for it with him.
We talked about this a lot. Like, what's so hard about Tights? Like, I love that he's just like audacious. Like, here I am.
Yeah. I actually think, and I watched this movie probably about a year ago for the first time, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I had never seen it. I was watching all the Batman movies. No. You know what it was? It was a few years ago. It was before the Batman came out, because I wanted to watch all the other Batman movies first.
Right.
Because I had never seen all of them. I saw the Dark Knight trilogy. I saw Batman '89. I never saw like Returns, Forever, or Batman and Robin. So I was watching all these ones for the first time. And when it got to Batman Forever and I saw Robin show up and he was this full-grown man, I thought, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And they made it work.
You know why that was, right?
No.
I think the studio was afraid of like child endangerment suits. So they wanted him to be older.
I was watching it and I just thought, like, they're kind of making this work. I liked the and I'm remembering it off the top of my head right now, but the way that Robin was angry at Harvey, and he wanted revenge, and he wanted to take him down permanently. And I think the fact that Bruce in this movie was so heavily against the idea of killing Harvey and killing Two-Face, I thought was like, I was watching this and I was like, this is really good. This is exactly what I would want to see from these two characters at this point in their careers. And I thought that it balanced well with with Two-Face and Riddler. I like their dynamic. And then unfortunately, you get to the end of the movie, and after all that talk with Batman about how he shouldn't kill Harvey, he totally throws him off of a building and kills him. I think that was wow. I was so confused on that. I thought maybe this would be like the first time a live action Batman didn't kill, but then there we are.
Well, he tried.
He tried, yeah. He preached it, but he just. But yeah, no.
You
I'm
don't
actually
kill,
really
let
big fan
me.
of that movie. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can't kill him because I want to. But
That reminds me of two more points, real quick, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one is just back to the Batman when we're talking about the mental connection. Don't you just love how in that movie, like, he's a detective and Jim Gordon, like, they are really only allowed to be as smart as the script demands at any point. Like, these are two intelligent, successful people sitting there brainstorming flying rats, and neither one of them occurs that it might have something to do with Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't see your face, so I don't know what you're like. I mean,
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying. I think with the whole thing about them with their detective and their whole solving the case or whatever, I think that there are a couple scenes or a couple points that they make where it's just like these two guys should have been able to figure that out way easier than what they did.
mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I do really like the relationship between Gordon and Batman. I think that when they're talking to each other, when they're in a scene together, I think that those two actors have good chemistry. Like they actually feel like they could be like friends in a way, in their own weird way. I think I liked, one of your favorite scenes, the thumb drive scene.
I love Thumb Drive.
Yeah, thumb drive is great. I like the scene where they both show up to the bat signal and they're just like, I thought that was you. I thought that was you. Like that I like their dynamic a lot. And I think that they work as like a sort of like a buddy cop duo almost, in like a weird and quiet, shy way. But no, I see what you're saying. I think that for as much as this movie claims itself to be a detective movie, they're not really keeping up with the Riddler. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a testament to like just how far ahead the Riddler is in his plans. I do really like the twist toward like the pseudo twist towards the end where he's like tells Batman that like we did this together. Like you were following the path that I gave you, and you brought him into the light, and that's how we were able to do this together. And
Yeah.
Batman's like, we weren't doing this together. I was trying to stop you, and like that. There was just that was sort of like a moment where I was like, oh. That again sort of harps on the whole like Riddler was also on this path of vengeance, in the same way that Batman was, and it caused him to think like they're on the same side. They both want to take down the corruption in the city, but the difference was that Bruce was doing it mostly for the sake of vengeance against his parents.
Yeah.
Riddler was sort of doing it because he had felt that he was mistreated, so the vengeance was sort of towards himself. And it was a little bit more selfish that way. And I think that that's one of the things that made Batman realize towards the end was like, the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing are not correct, even though what I am doing is a good cause.
Interesting. I can see that, Cody. I can. I just, again, like, I like these. So I'm going to give you a recommendation right now, right? This is if you've ever History Channel back when The Dark Knight came out, right? Like put out a amazing show. It's called The Psychology of the Dark Knight, and that definitely really influenced the way I look at Batman and a lot of those characters. And one of the things that one of the professors in that show talked about was that the idea of like Batman being more than us, right? And you were getting onto it with the Batman Forever bit, and that's that I've always seen like Batman and Superman as kind of having the same superpower. I know this is a stretch, bear with me, but I think both of their superpower, if they have one, is restraint, right? Batman goes to the line but doesn't cross it. Batman will, unless he really wants to or he's doing it so Robin doesn't have to, like he will do everything necessary to stop crime without eliminating the human being, right?
Yeah.
Behind it. And Superman, in like 99% of his stories, unless he's fighting Doomsday, his power is applying like as close to deadly force as possible without actually kind of obliterating someone. Yeah. And I like when the characters feel better than us, so that there's something that we can like strive to. And I also like it when the villains are better than us, right? Like that's my gripe with the Joker Joaquin Phoenix movie versus the Heath Ledger movie. Like even though the Heath Ledger Joker is still completely insane and completely twisted and evil, he had attributes that you would, I don't want to say like you would want, right? Like he was
Yeah.
he was he was ambitious, right? Let's say he was definitely had tactical skills and tactical some kind of training, right? Like he wasn't just some lunatic, right? This one, I would have been happier if by the end of the movie I felt like the Riddler won more completely or was more together than he was. Because as I was going back and watching this at the end of the day, I watched that last scene with him and the Joker, and they do the riddle, and then they laugh together like crazy people. And I know it's just a scene, but it's like for that to be the last image, I feel that undermines that character. It makes him just a raving lunatic. I thought of anybody, right, of the Batman villains, maybe other than Penguin, who we didn't get to yet. Riddler is probably supposed to be the most. I don't want to say. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but like he's supposed to be the most like. I guess the word is maybe like deliberate or strategic, and to reduce him just at the end to kind of like a babbling. I didn't know. I didn't like that choice. Kind of the last scene kind of reminded me of what I don't like about Batman Forever is like when they are over the top and they're just like laughing like lunatics together and posing and stuff. So it kind of felt like that through bars to me. Thoughts on that scene or no?
I'm gonna say this. I don't like that Joker scene at the end. That was probably the one thing that I was just like, they should have left that out. I think if I had to guess, I wouldn't be surprised if they were pressured by the studio to include some kind of nod to Joker because it was a Batman movie. Because DC and Warner Brothers is like obsessed with the Joker and putting him in everything because they think that he is their most popular villain, I guess you could say, in DC.
He has to merchandise more than any villain.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Maybe Harley, but Harley's his B, his extension.
Right. I just don't think it worked. I think it was it opened up some questions that made you think like I really like, for example, who put Joker in, like, this is year 2 Batman. Are we saying that he's already faced the Joker before and we didn't get to see that, or are you saying that like this is a person,
Gordon got him?
Yeah, like, well, who put him in there? Why is he like? Does he have a relationship with Batman already? Are we going to see him in the future? Is that what that was teasing? Like, I don't really get it.
Did you see the deleted scene? I saw it a while ago. I don't remember it. I wonder if they alluded to any of that.
I think I know what you're talking about.
There's a deleted scene where Batman goes to talk to the Joker in the asylum, and like we never really see Barry Keoghan's face other than like through.
Yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about. I don't remember what happens in that scene.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that up because I have completely forgotten. But yeah, I don't think it fit. I think it was just weird. I think it was odd. Or no, wasn't that scene like? Didn't he ask him something about the Riddler?
I thought he did. I thought he was going there to get information.
I think he was too. I think he went there to try to like.
I want to remember like a file being passed through the thing.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that if they did do a Batman, they're doing a Batman Part 2. I think if they go into that movie thinking that Joker is going to be their big bad for this one, I think they'd be making a mistake. Personally, I think that they'd be much better off with a villain like Mr. Freeze. I think that they would be much better off with a villain like honestly, Mr. Freeze would be exactly who I want. Do you have a wish list for a villain that you would want to see?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth with Freeze. I've always wanted to see that like real dark, like Heart of Ice type. Or you know what actually was, Heart of Ice is probably one of my, the animated episodes, right? Of course. Yeah. Probably one of my favorite Mr. Freeze stories until recently. Did you read The One More Day, Mr. Freeze?
I haven't, no.
It's so good. It deals with him as like it deals with the psychology of him, and like Batman kind of addresses how like he almost fetishizes having Nora in that state because he's able to control her, kind of thing. Like it kind of like points out like the disturbing nature of like him kind of like keeping her alive and suspended just for kind of his motivation and not for really her, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Really, really good story.
I do, and I think that Mr. Freeze. I think that for Robert Pattinson's version of Batman, I think Mr. Freeze would be a really good villain. I do.
Well, now that I'm seeing your kind of like take on this, right? Like, I mean, he would be, you know, if you go from like, if your story is to go from like darkness to hope, I guess would mean it maybe like putting hope up against emptiness. Maybe would be a
Yeah,
nice kind of
yeah.
juxtaposition.
Because I mean, that's all that Freeze is banking on, right? Is the hope that he can save his wife one day. And I think that if they bring in Bruce Wayne a little bit more in the next movie, I think that would be great. I think
Yeah,
that if Robert Pattinson can slick his hair back and pull off a nice Playboy persona, I think that would be awesome. Especially
yeah,
if you have Victor Freeze as somebody who's trying to get these treatments for his wife, and that's something that can involve Wayne Tech, can involve Bruce Wayne's whole operations and things like that. There could cause conflict between them personally without just Batman and Freeze. It could be like Victor and Bruce, that kind of thing. I think that there's a lot of stuff you could do. I did hear a rumor. I don't know if it's a rumor or if it was confirmed, and I want to know what you thought of it. That they're going to bring in Clayface in
hmm
the second one.
yeah.
What do you think about that?
I heard of that too. I love the idea, right? Again, you should read the One More Day series. Clayface had a really good one too.
Yeah,
They focused on like his acting aspect of him.
I love that.
Personally, I would love to see something like that. I'm a big theater geek. I'd love to see maybe like I don't know. I this is kind of hard to say. Like this is my one gripe with Clayface. Like how do you do Clayface so that he doesn't look like a giant shit monster? And I'm not trying to be funny. Like every time, like I mean, I love the character of Clayface. I think I love him the most on the animated series because he's the most stylized.
Yeah.
But
Have you ever seen the Harley Quinn show, the animated one?
I've seen an episode of it. I really liked it.
It's really funny. I think there's a lot of good Clayface in there. He's hilarious in that show.
Well, I'm still thinking about your other question too because that's a hard one for me. I'm always up for. I mean, at this point in terms of characters, right? Like I'm more like into like what kind of stories I want to see.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see. I mean, either one of these type of stories, but I think that would be like maybe like a third installment type thing would be to either see like some kind of Nightfall type story where he's just like flooded with villains and like kind of on like a spree to like restore sanity to the city, or like Arkham Asylum, the Grant Morrison one where he's got to go in and the asylum breached and he's got to you know
Yeah.
corral everything because I think that way you can get a lot of like characters like I don't know. I mean, there are characters that I wanted to see get treatments that really I don't know if they can support an entire story. Like I would love to see Professor Pig, but I don't think Professor Pig is a full. Although I did hear, isn't he rumored to be in this?
I think he was rumored, yeah.
I heard it was Brendan Fraser, which,
Really?
dude, I mean, it makes
Wow.
sense. He has the connection to the studio.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Yeah,
Wasn't Brendan Fraser going to play Firefly in the Batgirl movie? Am I getting that right?
he may have
I
been.
think that was I'm pretty sure it was Brendan Fraser as Firefly in the canceled Batman or Batgirl movie that they
Yeah, I hope they one day just. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how far along they were in post. I hope they one day just dump it on a streaming. It would cost too much to release in theaters with
Yeah.
promotion and stuff. But
Supposedly it was like almost done, if not like there.
I mean, the only reason I can think of it would be like that it must be so bad that they thought it would have been too costly to promote, or that maybe like the characters involved might have hurt the brand.
Yeah.
Like maybe they thought it might. Like maybe they thought the movie wasn't a good look for Michael Keaton Batman, and they didn't want to do him that
Right.
way.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
they were doing the Flash and stuff, and maybe they
hmm
didn't want that. But I don't know, man. I would have loved to see that movie. I think it would
Me
have been
too, man.
awesome. Whether
Which
or not it
Batgirl
was,
was it? Was it Barbara Gordon?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
it was.
No,
Was it?
yeah, it was Barbara Gordon. It was
Oh, okay.
it was Barbara Gordon. She had like her look from, I think it was It wasn't the New 52. It was like her rebirth
It
look.
was
Where it
the
was like
Babs
the
Car version. Yeah.
yeah, with like the leather jacket and all that, and
Awesome.
it
Loved
was a
it.
cool looking suit. Like if you like, she has a lot of pictures up on her Instagram of her in the mask and stuff, and she looks great. I would have loved to see that movie. Whether or not it would have been good, I think just seeing like a Batgirl on screen would have been cool, especially with like a live action Firefly. Brendan Fraser. I mean, like it had the pieces. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love, dude. A good Bane would be
Don't say
like
that. Tom Hardy was cool.
whatever,
He was cool. He just wasn't like the Bane we wanted.
whatever.
He's probably the Bane we deserved right now.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I have a question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
So now that we have all the Batmans that we have, you've seen all the live action Batmans.
Yes, I have.
Then we've established that you like the Batman the best.
I do.
What do you want to see them do for Brave and the Bold? That's
Oh
different.
man, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I want to see. I was talking about earlier where there's sort of two sides to Batman with the whole grounded detective noir, and then there's the sort of mythological character that's human, but he's more than human. I think I would like to see a more emphasized Batman, a more exaggerated Batman, one that probably couldn't exist in our world, but he does in this one. I think that is perfectly what I would want to see. And I heard that for Robin they're doing Damian Wayne. I hope that they portray a Damian Wayne that is much less obnoxious than the ones that are in the animated movies. I think that would be great, because I do like Damian Wayne. I do. I don't think I've seen an adaptation of Damian Wayne that I particularly like.
They make him the annoying, like...
He's the annoying little brother every time.
They don't... Yeah, they don't know how to write him, like...
No.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Who would you want to play him?
Who, Damian? Or Batman?
Yeah, either. Both.
Damian, I've seen a few good fan casts. I'm not like too well versed in young enough actors to put up a good one. For Batman,
Neither am I. Like, Timothy Chalamet, I still think it was a young actor. No,
I
that's
know.
not right.
Did you know he's like 30?
Yeah, he's probably more likely to be Batman than...
Right? That's crazy to me. I saw his age the other day and I was like, what? That just does not make sense to me. But I know it's a very popular one. I still wouldn't mind seeing Jensen Ackles put on the Batman cowl. I would like to see that. I think I like his voice. Like that's I like him in the movies where he's voicing Batman. I think that he's already got that perfectly fine. I've seen a couple other good ones. Have you heard that like Alan Richardson is now a pretty popular fan cast for Batman?
So I had saw him the other day as a fan cast for something that piqued my interest, tickled my fancy. I saw people like rumoring him for Sabretooth.
Ooh.
That big, like, animated,
Yeah.
hulking Sabretooth that we've
I
always
would
wanted.
like that.
Yeah,
like
that's a
that.
good one. I would like Alan Richardson as Batman. He's really grown on me in years. Like, I used
love
to
him.
watch back when the DC app first started. There was like they would do like a DC Daily Show where they would always have like different actors and people in the industry on it. It was really cool. And he was always on there with the Titans cast, and like he used to drive me nuts because he was a little too like interjecting frat bro.
Yeah.
But over the years, like I've really come to like him and like his work, and I think he would be a really good Batman, actually.
Yeah, I think he could work. Now, ideally, for Brave and the Bold, I would want to see a cast of people where I look at it and I go, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that's always the best way.
I do think that is the best way that they could go. I think that's pretty much what they went. I think that whoever casted Superman Legacy, get them on this one too, because I think that might be some of the most perfect casting we've seen in a superhero movie, at least so far. We have to see the performances and stuff when it comes out, but like in terms of just like, seeing it preview wise,
yeah,
they look good, and I think that they can all play the character well.
The ones I'm familiar with are like I've seen a little bit of Rachel Brosnahan, and I've seen a lot of Nicholas Hoult. I don't know this Corin Sweat.
Yeah,
What's his name?
Sweat.
I don't know him very well.
I don't
either.
either.
But yeah, ultimately though, I mean, it looks like a great cast. I mean, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner.
Oh.
Thank you, universe. Like,
yes. A lot of people were upset with that fan when that or not with the fan cast when the cast when it was announced. I like it.
You can't do anything now without
Of course.
drawing the
Yeah.
ire of somebody. What I liked about doing this, right, was going back and watching the Batman uh, from your point of view. And you and I talk about this a bit because we go see movies together quite a bit. When the comic movies release and stuff. Very often, it's a completely different experience when we're home alone watching it. And it's like movies are meant to be a communal experience, right? And I think so is like television, all that, right? Like I remember watching something one time where somebody talked about not having a TV in their house, and they were like, well, then what do you build the living room around? Yeah, like I think what the best part about like being a fan at all is instead of you and I being like not liking the Batman and me calling you stupid and a loser and we talk about what we like about it and we go back and we do a rewatch and we try to see it from another person's point of view. And I think that's the great thing about art in general is not only that we enjoy it for how it resonates with us, but like the people we see it with and how they see things, and
Yeah.
it reveals to us how they see the world. So yeah, I think that's kind of a cool, beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think I do want to ask. Do you think your perception of Batman has been a little bit more positive after this?
It's improved.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly. I got to go back and redo my letterbox list and like see where it slots in now. It definitely moved up a bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I
I
can
should
see
ask
my.
you where does it currently before you go back? Where did it land on like your Batman? Like is it
I
last
don't know on my
place?
Batman. On my comic book movies, like I think it was something like 101.
Wow.
But to be fair, like my comic list, like I count, like I think I'm up to like 160 comic book
Yeah.
movies.
Wow.
Like
I got to make a new one then. That's crazy.
yeah, I count. I mean, and I did a deep dive recently. I watched a lot of like old, less good movies to remind myself, like stuff I'd seen when I was a kid, and some of them and that's the thing. It's like you don't not everything, and maybe that's kind of the point of this, right? Like I'm always saying, as we've been doing this, I've been saying over and over again, like I wanted more, I wanted more, I wanted more, but at the end of the day, like I still love bad comic movies as much as I love good comic movies. Like, there's going to be a day when, sooner or later I'm going to be in the mood for Madam Web again, and I'm going to indulge and I'm going to watch it. And movies aren't just what they are. It's what you take from them, what you learn from them, and the enjoyment you get out of them. So yeah, it's definitely moved up on my list. I think I could even go so far as to say it's going to go ahead of some of the Snyder movies that I put above it in
You put
terms of
some of the
Batman
Snyder
movies.
movies above that one? Like which
Um,
ones?
at- well, I mean, he only did two Batman movies, so I would say the 4 hour cut, which
I could see that.
I mean,
I don't agree
what?
with I don't agree with it, but I guess I could see that.
And then Batman vs Superman, and it's like,
What?
and again, yeah, and Kobe, I'm not saying it's a better movie. It's not. It's definitely not. But sometimes we like stuff like one of my like, and this is the craziest thing, and I know it's crazy, but like one of my top 25 favorite comic movies of all time is Daredevil.
That's fair.
I know it's bad. I know it's
Yeah.
a bad movie. I know the characterizations aren't right. Ben Affleck should never be allowed near tights again. But uh, it's
Permanent
still
Batman.
got like it's one of those things that has enough of like what I love about the characters at the time that it was out that I have a lot of sentiment for it. And I think Batman vs Superman ranks so high on my list because even though it's not a very we talked about this, not a very good version,
No.
but I like Doomsday. I love Doomsday, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
it gets passes that this
Yeah,
one
it does
doesn't
get
get
passes.
because I didn't like the characterizations.
Yeah, I think it deserves some credit for being able to be a movie that puts Batman and Wonder Woman
Just existing.
for existing. Yeah, the fact
It's a
yeah,
movie.
no. Think about it. Like that movie existing is kind of crazy. Like the whole Superman and Batman, and then Wonder Woman shows up, and they all fight Doomsday. Like that. That's
Mhm.
kind of crazy that they put that in a live action movie, and I think the fact that they have that visually and it looks cool. That's enough to warrant it some credit. I still think it's not a very good movie.
No, it's definitely not.
um,
No, Zack Snyder. I just don't get his take on
I don't
superheroes
get
at
it
all.
either. Have you seen some of the Zack Snyder like what his plans were going forward if he
Yes.
continued? I think it's the stupidest
Do you
thing.
want to describe them for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, I think now I don't remember all of them, but I do remember
I can fill in some blanks if you get there.
I think the thing that surprised me the most when I was reading it was he had plans to have had. It was Bruce Wayne getting with Lois, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Impregnating her while Clark was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has a baby with him.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Why was that?
So
Whose idea was that? I mean, it was Zach's, but why?
that's what frustrated me the most about Zack Snyder, and like it's that he. What did we establish earlier, right? Like the DC superheroes more so than the Marvel, at least, or any other superheroes, are like meant to be like emulating gods, right? You
Yeah,
have
yeah,
these different
yeah.
godlike archetypes, and like he reduced them to like Dawson's Creek, like a little like petty love triangle where like Batman banged my girlfriend, so I'm going to go blow up the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah, totally.
number one, like we just talked about how these two guys are like the pillars of self control. I think Batman would say, Lois, I think this is inappropriate.
Yeah, I think so
I think
too.
Superman would say, well, Batman, I was kind of dead, so just don't do it again. Like they wouldn't have, like, they
Yeah.
wouldn't ruin the world over a love triangle.
Exactly. Superman wouldn't have, become an angry tyrant like he's in Injustice or something. Which,
Yes!
like, that's just like what? Why is it always with Lois and children that people think that will push Clark over the edge? I don't get that. I really don't.
And that's the thing I didn't like about any of these movies, where like they took these people that are meant to be. I think Grant Morrison, I heard talk about this, and it really shaped my perspective. He's like what the Alan Moore stories and things in the '80s did was show that like superheroes would not be able to exist as a reasonable concept. Like they just wouldn't function in the real world, but they're useful as like ideas and stories to give us hope and things to aspire to. And like that's what I'm getting at with this Batman movie. The Batman was like I didn't feel like he overcame enough, right? Like that's what I wanted to see more of, because these stories are meant to give people like hope in dark times. Like they talk about like when revolutions happen in the world, and violence breaks out and people are trying to be free. You often see a lot of them with like Superman shirts, and it's a universal symbol of like these ideals, and to like bring them down to like these petty fights is not useful. And the one that really, as bad as that is, the one that really drives me the nuts the most is I think it's in the extended cut only. I don't know if it made it in the Whedon cut, but when Wonder Woman's in the bank or whatever it was on the field trip, and the terrorists are there, and the guy opens fire and she like deflects all the bullets, right? Mm-hmm. She's got him dead to rights, and she obliterates him. Like she could bring him in, take him to justice, all those things. Like she was just standing on a scale of justice, wasn't she?
Yeah, she totally was. She was posing.
Yeah, she was posing on the scale of justice. Forgot about it. Goes in there, obliterates the guy.
Yeah.
Pretty bad stuff. But then she goes over to a little girl who looks up to her and goes, I want to be just like you.
Yeah, you want to be a murderer too, little girl?
And instead of saying anything like, well, I had, she goes, you can be anything you want to be. There's our morals.
Yep, that little girl grew up to be Donna Troy. That's where Zach's head is at. I'm betting. Yeah, no, I don't know. It's funny too because Wonder Woman of the three is the most willing to kill and cross that line, but she never does it without reason or without like needing to. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman's pretty good with judging based on her heart, and I think that's a good quality of her. And Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, I don't see that in any of her. I see like I don't know, a very powerful woman, if anything, but like they never really give her any sort of redeeming qualities beyond her strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a problem, right? Because I think when she's done well, like I think she's the reason. She's the voice of the reason. Like usually when there's like an argument in the Trinity, Batman's on one side and Superman's on the other, and like
she's
Wonder
the mediator.
Woman's the center. Yeah. And maybe that's the better term, like the voice of reason and justice.
I can see that for sure.
And obliteration.
And yes.
Yeah. But again, that's the thing. It's like Yeah, I mean, I can still deal with that. You
Yeah,
know,
and
like it's an
I
awful
think
scene,
reason's a
it's an
good
awful thing,
term.
but
I think reason's a good term because when you look at the pillars, it's Batman is justice, Superman's hope, and then we have Wonder Woman who's truth. And I
yeah,
think reason fits into that pretty well.
that's good. That's very nice. Wow.
So
Yeah, good stuff.
yeah,
And then the rest of the Justice League is useless.
yes, yeah. I like to
Did you ever
think
watch Seinfeld back in the day, the TV show?
I've seen a couple episodes. Yeah.
There's one episode in particular where like there's a guy that like is like on his deathbed and like he's like really sick and they send Jerry in to make him laugh and Jerry's like doing all these bits and nothing works. So Jerry goes home and he like writes new material. And the bit he's doing, and he finally gets him to laugh. The guy's like laughing hysterically, and he's like, "Are you telling me Superman couldn't do it all? He's Superman. What does he need those other guys for?" And then all of a sudden, you hear them go quiet, and then just the flat line, and he's like, Fulton," and like that joke kind of killed him. But it is true. Like, I mean, they are kind of like those three alone are kind of like all powerful.
Yeah, you could put
Some of the rest of the league,
you could
a
fit
little
Flash in
superfluous.
there. I think.
But more so than the Avengers, I think having a dude with like arrows is kind of, you know, stretching.
Yeah, but they all love Oliver. He's like the friend that doesn't really do much, but you keep him around because you've known him for so long, and
Yeah.
like he's funny. Like he makes that's what he's there. He's comedic relief.
Throws good parties.
Yeah, totally. He makes great chili. You know, like you got.
Remember, did you ever like collect like superhero trading cards? Like on the back, they have like attributes like strength, energy projection, chili. Like, okay.
Yeah, I never had any of those. I do have there's a Injustice arcade game that like you'd show up to the arcade and you'd fight and whoever won the match, it would print out a little. It wouldn't print it. They had them in the machines. It would pop out a little card for you, and it'd be one of the Injustice characters. I've got like
Do that?
yeah, I've got Raven, Martian Manhunter, Cyborg. I have Blackest Night Batman. I got a couple Harley Quinns. Like I got a lot of really cool characters in here,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have different variations and stuff. But yeah, so
That's
those.
pretty cool. I'd like to see them. I can't see them through here right
Yeah,
now, but
yeah, I'll show them.
I'd like to one day.
To the viewers.
Yeah.
Raven's right there. She looks cool. Some other good ones I have. There's a Harley Quinn, and it has her skin from Batman Arkham Knight, which is a video game that you should absolutely play.
Is it the nurse skin?
It is. It is.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that.
Yes. And then.
Good luck. Yeah, they made like a lot of really cool action figures from that game, I remember.
Yeah, dude. The Arkham games have some really great stuff in them, especially character design-wise. I love all of the Batman suits from the Arkham games. They're great.
Yeah. So speaking of characters, one more thing, going back to the Batman.
Yep.
And I just want to talk about this because we're gonna be delving into a whole series about this character. All right.
Yeah, of course.
How do you feel about the Penguin
In the Batman?
in the Batman Colin Farrell version that we got?
I know you're not a fan, but I am.
No.
I think he's hilarious. I think he's the funniest character in the movie. I think, and I watched that scene back that you were talking about where he's like, "Call me Oz," but which, by the way, you're quoting wrong. He says, "I'm Oz," and he goes to shake his hand. But like 3 times before that, they call him the Penguin. They do.
Okay.
Batman shows up to the
They
club
do.
and he goes, "You know who I am?" And the 2 twin goons, which I again think is also hilarious. There's like 2 bouncers for the Iceberg Lounge and they're twins and they're both idiots. Like that's, come on.
I mean, I would have liked it to like really lean into like. I guess maybe that's my gripe, right? Is like if you think of Penguin, like I think of like all the trademark stuff that's not there, right? Like I mean, I guess he kind of technically had a pointy nose, like the animalistic mannerisms and stuff. Like he didn't have any of that. Like, and even if you don't want to do the Burgess Meredith like quack quack squawk squawk whatever shit, you don't have to do that. Even the Danny DeVito one was like kind of vicious and ruthless. And I don't. Did we see that in this at all? Like, I feel like he didn't have like the funny colored suits and the umbrellas and any of that.
No.
Like he felt to me like kind of like knockoff of a Sopranos character. And I don't know if maybe I'm being too hard on it or
No,
what, but it
I think
felt
that's
like we
valid.
were playing the Sopranos.
I don't.
I mean, you know my thing about like I understand like you can't always do brightly colored comic book stuff. Well, I have a pet peeve. Full disclosure, I really hate when like movies try to find workarounds around like the source material. I hate when they're like self conscious about making a comic book movie. And I know that's not really the case here, but like calling. I guess they call him the Penguin, but like
Yeah.
Oswald Cobblepot, trying to make him like Oz. Like it just feels like you're trying to put like a coat of paint on a turd, or a coat of paint on a clay face.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that characterization, and I hated the gold tooth. What a weird
I
choice.
didn't even notice that. I think I don't know. I like it, and I like it in the sense that I like his character in the movie. I'm not necessarily saying that I think that he was like a great adaptation of the character of Penguin. I think that there are things that they could have done way better with him, but I don't know. I like Colin Farrell's performance. I think I liked a lot of the scenes that he was in. I like the scene.
But what's this whole series going to be about? Do you think? Is
I
it a
was wondering
prequel? Is
that. I
it
think
him? Is it a prequel, or is it him like kind of like picking up the vacuum of
I
power?
think it's picking up the vacuum of power after the flood. I think that's what it's supposed to be, and I think that's awesome.
Okay.
I'll be there for that for sure.
Again, it depends how the show goes. We'll talk about this 3 episodes in. If you give me a show where like we're playing in the Gotham underworld and we get to see a couple of villains every once in a while, I'm fine. But if we
Yeah.
get Sopranos light, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah,
Like
I would
just
like to see some other like Batman characters. I think that would be cool to see, just like little ones, even if it's just here and there.
something interesting you said there just kind of triggered me, and like we'll have to see. Time will tell, right, about this universe's stuff, right? But we've gone through this entire like analysis of the thing, and so far we've been exposed to Joker, Penguin, Catwoman. I think those are the only villains, right? And we're not thrilled with any of them,
Well, wait,
right?
wait. We have Riddler. We have Penguin, Joker, Catwoman. So there's 4. We also have Falcone.
Those are the big ones, though. Like those are the ones that we should have got right, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying like if we're looking forward to number 2, okay, we're coming out of number 1, and it's like we're not thrilled with the Joker we got, so that's probably a stinker. Penguin, you like better than I did, but okay, we'll put him aside. I don't know if we really talked about how the characterization of Catwoman, like she was fine, but like I guess what I'm saying is, who else do we have left that we're really like excited about getting to in this world that's gonna please us? Like, is there a Bane in this world that's going to make us happy? We're both excited about Freeze, but
Yeah.
this is like our version of a Freeze in that world. We don't know what we're going to
Yeah.
get.
I mean, there's some other villains that I'd like to see. There's some. It's weird, right? Because this world, again, they're going very hard to make it grounded. So it's hard to see any sort of characters with any ridiculous powers in here, right? So like when they say that they're
And it's also,
doing,
but it's also
go ahead.
no good.
Okay. When they say they're doing Clayface, I'm like, that's cool. How are they going to do that? When they do, I would love to see Poison Ivy. I don't know if they'd ever do that in this universe. I would like to see it, though.
Well, that's the thing is like I'm sitting here like the characters that you said in the grounded universe, we've already mostly seen grounded versions of, right? Like you're not going to do one of the people that like when you said what would this next Batman look like that I like thought I went to right away. I was like, oh, Scarecrow. And then I'm like, well, grounded Scarecrow is probably going to look like Nolan's Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Two-Face is probably going to look like the Two-Face we've already got.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm cautious. But I am more optimistic than I was now. And, like, again, cool theme, right? Like, being able to, like, appreciate something from somebody else's point of view and enjoy it a bit more. I definitely do. And it's definitely something that I may go back to more now.
Yeah.
That I probably wouldn't have any, earlier.
So we've pretty much covered our main topic of the Batman,
Yes, sir.
and we stumbled a bit into some other Batman movies, which was nice. And we'll definitely do some more episodes on going through all of the Batman movies specifically. That way we're not just talking mainly about the Batman. I want to say there's something I saw going around on Twitter. This is going completely off topic, pretty much, but I wanted to hear
Sure.
your perspective on it because I think that it's definitely open for discussion. I think it's something that viewers over on whether it's YouTube or TikTok would love to chip in on. There was a question that was asked, and it was if Batman and Spider-Man were to swap cities. So Spider-Man goes to Batman's Gotham, and Spider-Man goes to Batman goes to Spider-Man's New York. Who would have a tougher time? And I really want to hear your opinion on this because there's some really one-sided discussions here.
Spider-Man.
You think Spider-Man would have a tougher time?
Well, I mean, look, which Batman, which Spider-Man, what time, whatever. I mean, you and I were talking recently how we both liked Ultimate Spider-Man. That Spider-Man would have a hard time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The Ultimate Spider-Man in the, Hickman's version, right? Taking MJ and his family, raising them in Gotham, hard time. I don't know what Batman would really struggle with. What's the argument on Twitter or TikTok?
So supposedly, people are saying that this is really one-sided and that Batman would stand no chance, and Spider-Man would wipe Gotham. And I just don't see it.
What do you mean?
Like
Spider-Man would clean up Gotham?
Yeah, like they're saying that he would pretty much not really struggle against any of Batman's enemies, and I'm just thinking like, how? If and I want to talk about Batman and facing off against Spider-Man's villains because I think a lot of people are saying that Batman would struggle because a lot of Spider-Man's villains are more physically adept because they have to fight Spider-Man. I would love to see a good Batman versus Norman. I think that'd be a cool story, but I don't.
It's funny, Kobe. I had a completely different take on it originally. I thought when you said it, I thought the argument was going to be that Gotham would corrupt Spidey and drive him to a dark place, and that Batman would be bored in New York because it's not as complex as Gotham.
I'm saying like Gotham is a terrible. You do not want to go to Gotham. You definitely don't want to be the superhero of Gotham. That's not a fun job.
No, you have to have the mindset for it. It's and that's another thing too, right? Like we don't a distinction between Batman and Spider-Man, right? Like Spider-Man, way more than Batman, is a dude trying to balance a superhero with a personal life, right? Especially in his version, most versions of Spider-Man, he has a healthy social circle. Batman is really a commando willing to go down for the mission, If Batman dies and Gotham perseveres, he's cool with that trade-off. Spider-Man probably is, but I think more than anything, Spider-Man would want to be there for MJ and what are his kids now, Little May and Little Ben and whatever. I see Gotham eating Spider-Man alive. I can come home seeing this little redheaded freckled kid with a big Joker smile. It would drive him nuts.
Right?
But yeah, I mean, when Spider-Man's not Spider-Man, he'll walk down the street and he'll joke with a hot dog vendor and
right, yeah.
Have a laugh in the sandwich shop, and Gotham is not that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Bruce Wayne, or we take for granted.
Did they mean 66 Gotham?
I have to wonder, people take for granted the fact that Bruce Wayne's a billionaire who lives outside of downtown Gotham. He lives in a mansion. Peter Parker would have to live in an apartment down the street from Ace Chemicals. He's getting robbed. He's getting robbed every night.
Yes. Touche. Batman gets to go home to Alfred and a warm bath.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's got to go home to no heat and no cable.
Yeah, Bruce would enter New York and build a tower higher than Oscorp. He puts himself in an advantage in that way, and I think that
there'd be a borough named after him,
right,
Waynesboro.
Yeah, literally Waynesboro. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. A lot of people were talking specifically villain wise. I don't think that there's a lot of Spider-Man villains that put up too much of a fight for Batman.
He does not have cosmic level.
No.
The messiest ones would be the symbiotes.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. But the thing is, they have such direct.
Rhino runs in one direction. Batman can step left.
Yes, exactly. Rhino is he's fought Killer Croc. He's fought Bane. Rhino's just
Solomon
Bane
Grundy.
but dumb. It's not
Grundy.
I mean, I think maybe Craven might give him some struggle there, but even still, Batman's just Craven but better.
Yeah,
That like,
absolutely.
there's, I mean, Doc Ock, big metal arms, big
Yeah,
whoop.
that's easy.
Yeah,
Easy peasy by comparison. No, I was thinking, actually, my initial take was that he'd be bored, that he would miss the
I
crime
think so
and the
too.
excitement.
I really
I
do.
mean, he would have that city cleaned up in a week,
Like,
right?
yeah, like
I mean, who would really give him
I don't
trouble?
know. The only thing I
He
can,
would have friends.
right? He would start to have a
He
social.
would have help.
Yeah, totally,
He would have help. The Avengers are right down the street.
totally,
Like,
man.
he doesn't really have to work nearly as hard.
Yeah,
He can move the whole team in,
right.
like the whole Bat family.
Mm-hmm. Nightwing would love it
Spider-Man's
there.
just got a family.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I
Yeah,
don't see why.
Spidey's got it way harder, and this isn't even. How is this a
I
debate?
know that's what I'm saying, and like I mean, Spider-Man. You know, you have Scarecrow to worry about. You know, you could wake up one morning and Bane's planned out your entire evening for you, and it's gonna be dying. Like
Yeah.
it's not a. I don't know.
Poison Ivy with the pheromones,
Yeah.
like, could have you under your thrall or whatever. Like, there's so much. Sorry, there's so much. Like, yeah, you're right. That could go wrong. Like the Batman's rogues gallery is no slouch.
Yeah,
Like no
no.
group of slouches. I don't know who thought this up.
I don't know.
I could see Batman maybe struggling with maybe X-Men. X-Men villains
Right.
would be difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense because they're
Like Omega level threats, but there's nobody in Spider-Man's rogues gallery that's even close.
yeah, like most of Spider-Man's villains are just Batman's villains, but weaker.
Yeah.
I mean-
Batman would wind up he would need a hobby for all the free time.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the theater. Ooh, no, maybe not.
You do theater, you said?
I was gonna say he could go to the theater, but then I was like, oh, he had a bad experience that one time.
That's gonna bring back some.
He's not going to be hanging around Broadway. You know, I actually wanted to do something. I wanted to throw out 2 recommendations, right? Like a lot of my
Rex.
yeah, and these aren't movies. These are just things about comics and movies and stuff because I talk a lot about certain things, and one of them I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to give a quick stop. I think we're going to have to wrap up here, but for to understand my frames of reference better, I'm going to give 2 things. Number 1 was the History Channel Psychology of the Dark Knight. It's a really awesome. It really delves in deep to Batman, his villains, and kind of how they were constructed and kind of what they represent and so forth.
Yep.
And the other one that I really like, and it's a harder find right now because Amazon just took it off, but Superheroes: A Never-Ending Journey. I think it's called Superheroes: A Never-Ending Journey or Superheroes: A Never-Ending Battle. It's a PBS special in 3 parts. Takes you through the Golden Age, the Marvel Age, and then the more modern age of comics. Both really interesting and give a lot of insight into how these things, how the history of comics played out and how a lot of the creators saw them. So very interesting stuff to check out.
All right, those are the Rex. Yep, I like it.
Cool.
I will check those out.
Awesome. I got them for you. I'll bring them in next time I see you. Any final thoughts, Kobe?
I hope your opinion on the Batman has improved.
Yeah.
I would hope for
Absolutely.
drastically, but it's probably only slightly because I think you brought up a lot of good stuff that I've got to think about whenever I end up doing a rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm even more excited for the Penguin and the Batman Part 2. And I think this was fun. I think back here on episode 2, we definitely got to start thinking about what that topic's going to be. I have some ideas.
We have a few in the works that we were pitching, and I like a couple of the ones we discussed.
Yes, for sure.
And I like that Batman. I think we could actually delve deeper into Batman.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, in future episodes. But, dude, I had a blast, man. I loved it. I definitely did. Again, this is the thing I like most about movies, right? It's seeing why, and all art, right, is not just seeing what I see in them, but considering other people's points of view. And I did enjoy it. And I did like it. I think I did like it a bit more than a little bit better, Kobe. I think you definitely, I think it's more than that. I think you did a better job of helping me appreciate some stuff. Especially that bookending of the images, right? That idea of him being a fearmonger in the beginning and a beacon at the end. Yeah, I got to go back and rewatch and see if I can see that premise a lot more.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else you want to leave everybody with?
I think that's going to be it. Thank you for watching. Check us out on the other social media platforms. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube now. And there will be links everywhere that lead to everything. Check descriptions, check bios, all that stuff. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys next week again.
Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.